Folks, at home, hold on to your hats, right, because this Daily Mail scoop is a doozy. Iran are recruiting British Muslims to spy on UK Jews and dissidents. Now, you might not be shocked by that, because I'm not. I tell you, it's about as predictable as rain in Newcastle. The Jewish Chronicle already showed us last year that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps have been turning a London student group into a loudspeaker for extremist anti-Semitic garbage. The commander, Saeed Ghassemi, has been blabbering about the Holocaust being make-believe, cozying up with Al-Qaeda and egging on British students to join his madcap crusade against Jews. One of his mates, Hussein Yekta, claims Jews invented homosexuality. A new one. Is there anything that the Jews can't do, according to these nutters? And these hate fests, courtesy of this is Islamic Students Association of Britain, according to the Jewish Chronicle, are being gobbled up by thousands. But that's not all right. This was just yesterday. Let's have a look at the University of Leeds, flaunting a banner saying boycott Israel, hooray for Houthis. The same rebels targeting British maritime ships. Oh, and guess what? They've just executed 13 men for being gay. I mean, teenage rebellion's one thing, but I draw the line, I don't know about you, at supporting gay-killing extremists. Where are those queer for Palestine privileged prats at now? And then there's the University of Birmingham with their Zionists off our campus banner. It's like they're taking notes from Hitler's playbook. And our Conservative Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat, well, he's just tweaked that the Houthis are being glorified on British campuses. But Tom, this rot has been festering under the Tories' watch. What about clamping down on foreign students that are opposed to our values, or illegal immigrants coming here with sinister agendas? There's no sign of that. I say it's time for some real Conservative muscle to squash this Islamist blight on our once proud nation. Belinda DeLucy, your kids, are you worried about them going to these universities at one point?
Well, I feel quite blessed. My eldest chose not to go to university and she's now working 9 to 5 at 19, and I'm really proud of her because I think there is a problem with Islamist bullying on campuses. I've experienced it firsthand myself at Speaker's Corner. I used to go all the time on a Sunday. It was a great date place, by the way, Speaker's Corner in the 90s and noughties, to take a date there, until there started to be hordes of Islamist men who weren't like my Muslim friends and, in fact, attacked moderate Muslims as much as they attacked me or Jewish people. And they gathered together in such numbers and became so threatening in their shouting and cornering me. I stopped going. And the problem is, there are people out there saying, oh, why doesn't the Muslim community stand up to these Islamist bullies? How can we expect then to, when our own government refuses to stand up to them? Look at Boris Johnson and the Tories when they rejected Asia Bibi, the Christian Pakistani, when she sought sanctuary in this country. Her application was rejected because they couldn't guarantee her safety because of the radical Islamists in our country, because they won't stand up to them. So unfortunately, I think they've opened the gate now. And Ben, you have kids. I mean, do you worry about, it's not just university campuses, although those pictures I think are totally shocking, and what they're actually advocating and supporting in campuses up and down the country. But also head teacher Catherine Birbal-Singh, she said that actually, in much the same way that Belinda's just articulated, that actually students are being pressured by parents more radical than perhaps some more, shall we say, moderate Muslims who into praying and these other things. And that's what actually enabled Catherine to say, look, I am not going to go ahead with this. This must end in our school.
Look, I don't think it's an Islamist thing, which by definition is like an extreme version of Islam.
It's a political ideology rather than...
Right. I mean, I was scrolling through Twitter earlier, as I unfortunately happen to do most days, inanely. But I came across an old Stacey Dooley BBC documentary from about 2012, which was called... It was about Luton, her hometown, which was... I can't remember what it was called. Was it My Fanatical Hometown or something like that? And even even just what you'd call moderate Muslims, even at that time in 2012, and things have got a lot worse since then, even the so-called moderate Muslims were displaying quite questionable behaviour about, I mean, for example, telling Stacey that she looked like she was dressed naked on the street, chanting for UK police to go to hell, etc., etc. So I don't think it's even just an extremist Islamist problem. I think there's a real cultural problem where these people in towns like Luton, Bradford, Leicester, lots of places up north, they don't just struggle to integrate, they don't want to integrate. And for me, it's a wider societal problem.
So, I mean, in a word then, are you optimistic about the future?
Well, no, because we've got uncontrolled mass migration of 700k a year legally, which the government could control and hasn't, around 50, 60k a year by the small boats. So, no, and they're predicting 10 million people over the next, how many years was it the other day?
It's by 2030.
Right, so no, I'm not optimistic
it'll be 70 million. But Albie, I mean, do you have a more optimistic take? Because we're being quite pessimistic now.
Do I have an optimistic take on the future? Yeah, I think I do have an optimistic take on the future more broadly. But look, we've got to look at why are these people protesting. They're protesting because of what is going on in Israel and Palestine at the moment. And I have to say, I am pro-Israel, but I think what has been going on, especially this week, with Netanyahu telling people in Rafah that they have to leave, which is where they were told to go because they were bombing northern Gaza. Now they're saying leave southern Gaza because we want to bomb there. I think it's absolutely appalling. So actually, I think what we need is a resolution to this crisis which is going on in the Middle East, and it doesn't seem like one is.
But it's not just the Israel problem. You had some young lad last year forced to grovel with his mum in a village hall and give an apology because he was autistic, because he scuffed the Quran.
Yeah.
Then you've got multiple other examples in London. You've got the Bible Sing school where she didn't want them to pray.
But the protest we were just looking at was a pro-Palestine protest.
Well, it was also holding up placards saying, Zionists not welcome here.
That same issue going on.
But they are firing at British ships, though.
They are, and I think that is wrong. But we can't kid ourselves. It's all linked to the same crisis at the moment.
I mean, Benjamin, coming to you then, I mean, do you accept that actually perhaps when we consider universities, there is a problem with the British academic left, for example?
I mean, I think, I did my undergraduate at the LSE, London School of Economics, where Albie also studied, so maybe it's a woke thing. But, that there is a university with a very long history of this kind of protest, so I don't think it's entirely new. But I wanted to pick up on what you mentioned at the start of your monologue, which was Iran. Now, I've written and investigated a lot about the actions of Iran on this country, and I think they are behind a lot of these revolutionary protests and Islamist movements that are going on in this country. At the time I did my report, which was almost a year ago now, there had been 15 attempted assassinations on British soil linked to Iran and the Revolutionary Guard. I spoke to one person who'd been locked up in Iran and then she'd been sent back to the UK. She'd made it back to the place she lives. And she found that they had tried to poison her in an NHS hospital and kill her, and that she reported that to police. I spoke to someone who was told that they couldn't walk their own grandkids in the park because of the level of threat of assassination. And what did the UK government do? Almost nothing. The Revolutionary Guard is not a prescribed organisation. And so long as we bow down to these extremists that are meddling in our country, you will keep having this problem.
All right, that's very good. It's just proof that he can actually say some sensible things.